July 14th, 2017. My name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla in New Mexico. With your legislative update for the day, I spent the last 2 days in Indianapolis at a conference called Complete College America. This is an organization that is funded by a lot of Silicon Valley folks, and their big point of being is trying to find ways, new policies that can get Americans to finish college. And this is important for a couple of reasons, right? First, of all the jobs created since 2009, 99% of them require a technical certificate, an associate's degree, or a higher degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, etc. So as we see the world turning towards more mechanization, robots, artificial intelligence, that sort of thing, the jobs that are being created need to, the people that need to get those jobs need to have a higher education. And so that's important. Furthermore, there was an interesting slide they showed us of the people in the bottom quintile, so the bottom 20% of income in the United States. If you get some kind of secondary education degree, you double your chance of making it from out of that income bracket into a higher income bracket. So it's one of the best ways to get people out of poverty, which is really important in a state like New Mexico where a lot of folks are impoverished, right? But there's some issues. A lot of people don't finish school for, there's 3 or 4 reasons they said. First of all, credit creep. It used to be that you could finish a bachelor's degree with a smaller amount of credits, associate's degree with a smaller amount of credits, but as universities have decided to require more and more credits, this has become harder. So one of their big best practices is, say, cap bachelor's degree at 120 credits and cap associate's degree at 60 credits. Another thing that they talk about is student debt. And once again, that's because it's hard to get debt, but it's also because the time it takes to get through college. So their big thing is time is the enemy. Make sure that students are taking 15 credits a semester. That should be considered full-time, according to them, not the old school way of doing 12 hours. And they want people, getting through school. Now, this is always a little bit easier said than done because some people have to work, some people have kids, etc., and so on. But that's really one of their big things. They want pathways to success, and their worry is that there's so many options now in higher education in terms of classes you can take and options you can do that it causes people to sidetrack a lot, stay in school longer, and once again, get more debt and not finish school. They also say that remedial stuff is a problem. So if you don't have the basic English or math skills you need going into school, coming out of high school, they're trying to find ways of setting up systematic courses to get you up to speed so that you can then complete the rest of your college degree. So these are all the things that they really focus on. And there's a couple of issues, though, moving forward, right? In addition to all of these problems, it's now become a political issue. So 72% of Democrats in the country think that higher education is now a good thing. 58% of Republicans don't view that way. They're the opposite. They think higher education is actually not good for America, and it's a symptom of this larger polarization we have in the country. And there's a bunch of other questions we're going to have to answer as a state in order to get those things done, those best practices, which these guys have found by data, shows people getting through college, right? So what is the role of a university? As Gary Carruthers pointed out the other day, he thinks that there are too many universities in New Mexico. But should we consolidate those into bigger universities but have less of them to take advantage of economy of scale? If so, does that leave rural places and rural students kind of out of the lurch? And it does hurt the economy of small towns. Secondly, what about wholesale learning versus specified training? So do we want this holistic education, or do we want very specified training based on the type of jobs that are available? And you want, obviously, job training. You want people to come out with an education they can use to get a job, but you also want higher education to be more of a well-rounded thing. So you want to come out with some history, some government, a little bit of math, even if you don't use it, that sort of thing. But what's the right mixture there? What about best practices? So if we talk about credits per semester, saying you need to take at least 15 credits a semester, how does that take into account what people can and can't do? If it costs a lot more to go to school than it used to, and the minimum wage you make with a lot of jobs is not as much as it used to, can people do that? How do we get people through that cycle? And lastly, is there a clear and straight path? And can that be forced on institutions versus having every higher education institution have its own independence? These are big questions, and there's things we're going to have to really figure out at a state level, because right now we're not built in our state to have kind of a top-down approach. Each institution has so much autonomy And that's good in ways, but it's also probably not as good in a lot of ways. For instance, Georgia has 2 boards of regents for their entire state, one for 2-year schools, one for 4-year schools. California has 3. We've got 17 or 18. So we're going to have these conversations moving forward and figuring out how we can do better, because we're behind in this task, and it's something I'm going to be working on, because it's one of the things that we absolutely have to create more jobs and create a better economy for the state. So that's my report for the day. Thanks everyone for watching and listening to this. I hope it was somewhat informative. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns on these or any of the issues, I'd love to hear from you, and hope everyone has a great weekend. Thanks.